Welcome to The Standard. My name's Rhett Weaver. The idea behind this project is where average people have raised their standards. We're going to show you the blueprint. Let's do this. All right, guys, I'm super excited about this one. We got Ryan Kramer. Kramer's been a good friend of mine, for 8 months now?
Yeah.
Yeah, somewhere around there.
Ready to get married.
There we go. No, but what I love about Kramer, we clicked really early, really fast, and I think it's more of the authenticity of who you are. You're real, you're authentic, and I think that's what I love about you, right? For those who don't know Ryan, Ryan's been the #1 single agent in the city of Utah for the last 3 years. Did how many units last year?
287 last year.
And it's just you and a transaction coordinator, an assistant.
Yep.
So,
and she's a lot more than that, obviously. I mean, she is the rock in the office, but yes, just one assistant and myself.
Yeah, thanks for coming, dude. I think this is super cool for you to take some time out of your day and come show
up. All the way up here.
Yeah, from St. George all the way up, right? No, obviously I kind of want to get into how you got into it, what you do on a daily basis. Your schedule's crazy. We'll get into that, but I kind of want to just start out like, where'd you grow up? What was that like? What was the family dynamic like? Was that a big thing that helped you become super driven in what you're doing right now?
So I grew up in Los Angeles, California. Father was military, then opened up sporting goods stores when he got out of the military. Parents were divorced, so I never really saw either one of them. They were both busy running their careers, and went to a snotty prep school in Southern California, and worked at some country clubs down there growing up as a kid, and then moved to St. George. Started working at Introlend Country Club when I was, I think, 16.
Talk to us really quick though, like growing up in LA, what was that like?
It was a blast. You had Disneyland, the Dodgers, the Lakers.
Yeah.
I mean, the beach. I mean, you got golf courses like this, minutes away. You got Riviera, Hillcrest, Sherwood.
Yeah.
I remember watching as a kid, Snoop and Dre, just on Sunset Boulevard. And, you could always catch a game after high school or after middle school with the grandparents. Definitely a lot more competitive than I found in southern Utah. A lot more diverse, and I predominantly grew up in a Jewish area. In fact, a lot of household names went to my school, and 13, you're going to bar mitzvahs and bat mitzvahs every weekend.
Yeah.
And
who were snotty prep school stuff that you were kind of talking about? Do we know anybody that kind of went there?
So Kourtney Kardashian, I think she's 4 years older than me. She was there. She was close friends with a lot of my friends' older sisters.
Yeah.
David Hasselhoff, Will Smith, the Jackson family, the Disney family, the Eisner family, and then we had quite a few diplomats kids that went to the school as well.
Yeah.
So it was.
So what was that atmosphere like for you?
Well, I was the poor kid in school, right?
Yeah.
And we were fine. But
Yeah.
Without anything by any means.
Yeah.
But we didn't have the membership at Riviera like some of my friends, or Hillcrest, Sherwood. It was I guess a lot like Roland Hall up here.
Was it like eye-opening for you though? I mean, was it like something that you aspired to become, or
that's a great
class?
point. So I think, having everything I ever needed or wanted growing up was great, and somehow my father was able to instill a work ethic in me.
Yeah.
And having Japanese grandparents that worked their entire life and really hard, that obviously helped. But it definitely helped going to a school where most of my friends' parents had drivers. They had full-time cooks in the houses.
Yeah.
A couple of them, I remember Henry Winkler's son Max and I, when we'd hang out and go to concerts or something, we always had a Bentley limo that took us and brought us back, and then we'd get home and they'd have French toast at 2 in the morning. So, but it did encourage you when I was like 15, 16, working at either Abercrombie and Fitch or at the golf courses, cleaning up the range, that, okay, I'm going to have to do something.
Yeah.
Because this isn't going to get me the cars and the house and the retirement.
So did military take your dad to LA?
Or no, he was born and raised in Los Angeles.
Okay, cool. So he was as well.
Yeah, everybody in the family's from Southern California originally.
Awesome. Cool. What did your grandparents do?
So my dad's grandparents passed away when he was really, really young, so he raised his whole family, all of his brothers.
Yeah.
And then my mom's parents were Japanese Americans, and they were pretty old when they had her. So passed. I think my grandfather was 97 and my grandma was like 101 or 2.
Oh, really?
So she had actually lived, grandma had lived through the Great Depression as a little girl.
Yeah.
And then she also went through the internment camps.
Okay.
So, and they were really hardworking, living the American dream, American citizens. They had businesses. In fact, some of their products actually can still be purchased at local grocery stores.
Really?
So they did really well. I was a little disappointed I didn't get to grow up with more of my Japanese heritage just because they were always afraid for me to learn how to speak Japanese or look Japanese or have any ties in case, you know, the internment camps came back, I guess, or something. So never really even saw them speak Japanese unless they were yelling at each other behind closed doors or you know, in a private conversation. And then my dad's worked sunrise to sunset for as long as I can remember until about 2 years ago. So
yeah, that's awesome.
Everybody in the family's worked hard.
Pretty hard. Good. So what, I mean, obviously growing up through the teens and stuff like that, what brought you out to Utah? Why did you come to Utah?
So originally I came out to Utah for Wasatch Academy. So, and it's kind of interesting, if you guys know Wasatch Academy now, they've got a great basketball program. And, you know, so some of the kids I coach in youth sports now, they're like, Coach, you were the starting point guard for Wasatch Academy? I'm like, you know, we were 1A back then, so it's a little different than it is now. But, so I came out to Wasatch Academy and kind of fell in love with Utah because we'd come up to Provo and Salt Lake quite a bit for games and activities and playing other teams, and then went down to St. George with some friends that got jobs. Yeah. So get down to St. George, it's July, it's hotter than heck. Yeah. And I'm thinking, you know, they pitched it to me like it was going to be a Palm Springs, and it was horrible. I'm like, it's too hot, shopping's not good, the food's horrible. So
it's still the same, isn't it?
Somehow I got
food's
stuck.
Gotten better.
Yeah, food's gotten a little better. So somehow I got stuck in St. George, fell in love with the area, and Neil Gibbs, who is the broker at one of our offices down there, saw me at Entrada Country Club working, and he saw my real estate textbook when I was about 17 and a half, and basically just said, hey, come work for me.
Why did you have the book? What was the interest in real estate?
So my uncles have owned real estate companies and so forth in California, and have done really well with that, and being around their offices and seeing what some of their agents had accomplished and acquired with rental properties and everything else, I thought, well, it won't be bad. The idea was to actually do that while I was going to college. Yeah. And then, to be honest, I think it was that first 9 months I just did really, really well and thought, well, why should I go to college? And horrible attitude, but that was the attitude. And then by the third year, it had doubled again and just kept growing and growing and growing, and kind of created a monster of its own. And and it just snowballed to the, you know.
No, let's kind of shift into real estate, right? Obviously, you got into it when what? You're 17, 18 years old.
About 3 days after I turned 18.
Yeah, that's wild. So with kind of getting into it, did anybody mentor you? Did you just, like, when I got into doing mortgages, right, I just jumped on naive thinking like, I can do this. You know what I'm saying? Out of the gate, were you kind of the same, just like head down, let's go? Or did you get a mentor, a coach? What did you end up doing?
So coaching was available when I got into it, but it wasn't on the level that it is now. And, and I think coaching now is available for everything. And I really think, honestly, the whole mentor mentality is almost a cop-out. And I hate to say that because mentors do great things and it's good to have somebody, but at the same time, I see so many people use that as a crutch. And well, I have a coach, and unfortunately, the most important aspect of succeeding in your business, my business, and so many others is you just got to go out and hustle. And you're either wired to hustle or you're not. You're either that kid that's going to die for those loose balls or not. I can't teach kids to take a charge or die for a loose ball. That's either innately in them or not. So I did end up getting a coach about, I think it was about a year and a half in. Mike Ferry, if you're in real estate, you probably heard of him. He's a great coach, great program.
And why did you get one? Why did you feel like you needed it?
I did. Great question. So, and to back up real quickly, so when I got into it, basically the brokers in the office said, just go out and do it. So I was kind of really a fish out of water. I was knocking on doors, trying to get business. Took my first listing from knocking on a door. It's a $500 flat fee. Turns out her father was the associate broker in our office. He was a little upset about that, but I basically told him the truth. I said, I'm brand new. I don't know what I'm doing, but I'll work really hard.
Yeah.
You know, $500.
Yeah.
You know, I'll spend $250 on flyers, and I'll keep $250, which was better than working at the country club, honestly.
Correct. Yeah.
So I thought it's a win-win. Well, in about a year and a half, I had sold 14 in there, just because it just word spread.
Yeah.
And I think the average sale was like 114, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, Moon River townhomes. So it's kind of interesting how that happened. And then the reason, to answer your question, why did I get a coach? Well, probably not the best reason to get a coach, but because my best competitors, and at that point you can't even call them competitors. They were, who was I to say they're a competitor? They were the top dogs in the market.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Same coach.
Yeah.
So I thought, well, if they have them, I better have
Correct.
them, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
if all the world's 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 best golfers have Butch Harmon, then I'm going to Butch Harmon.
Correct.
Right? So,
yeah.
So that's how I got into it. And at the time, it was like $1,000 a month. And most people that do coaching need the accountability more than anything else.
Yeah.
The skills is a part of it, but really I find that when people go to coaching, you need somebody to crack the whip and to really hold your feet to the fire.
Yeah.
That's never been my problem.
Correct.
And I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but I've always lacked in the other department with the skills. And so coaching was great. I would recommend it. But at the same time, I just see all these inspirational things on Instagram every single day, and whether you're in real estate, mortgage, or being a life coach or whatever it is, you know, at the end of the day, I think people just need to sit down and say, hey, I just want to make this happen. So
correct.
If they just try a little harder.
Correct. I know, I kind of felt like when I got into it, right, like, for me, I think I was, A, I'm a pretty confident kid, and then B, I just felt like I was so naive, and everything that I'd kind of done in life, like, you know, whether it was summer cells or whatever that might be, it was just like, go figure it out.
Yeah.
So I think taking that mentality into being a loan officer is kind of like, hey, I'll just figure this stuff out.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And it's like, what else do you do other than just hit the pavement running?
Absolutely.
And like 3 years in, I kind of felt the same thing as you. Is it's just like, hey, I'm succeeding at a very high level, but there's something missing. Whether that was like, you know, how I communicate with real estate agents at lunch, trying to pitch them, or you know, maybe it was the back end systems of how I run my conveyor belt a little bit better and operate a little bit better. So I kind of did the same thing as you. Is all I did is I went to Google though, and I googled like, you know, top mortgage coach in the United States, and I figured out, you know, there was like 170 something people at that time making $1 million, and one coaching company had them. And so I thought, like, freak, if I want to try and make $1 million in this industry, I might as well hire somebody, right? And I felt like that coaching was phenomenal for me. Like I had to sign up for a full year, and looking back on it, I'm like, well, of course they want me for a full year, because after about 2 months, 2.5 months, I had everything I needed as far as structure-wise or how it was going to present to people, you know, and then it was good from there. The rest of it was just more of the accountability stuff. You know what I'm saying? And so for me, I kind of felt like that was a huge advantage in my career to pick up a coach, because I learned some nuances or some stuff from some of the top guys in the nation, and it really helped me on how do I present to agents, you know, how do I talk to them, how do I get what they need, you know, how do I add value to them basically. And so that was a huge win for me. So let's kind of dive into, obviously you kind of got a coach, right? You've always been super structured. Let's talk, I mean, I think this is the difference between, you know, obviously being number one in the state of Utah for a couple of years and not being number one, right? I mean, you lead by a large margin as far as like a single agent. You know, you're ahead of the next person by like 70 deals a year, right? Which is just absurd, it's crazy. What I think a lot of people don't understand about you is it's the schedule, right? I don't know if I'm kind of into YouTube quite a bit. And ever since Kobe's passing, it's been fun to watch some of his stories pop up, right? And I remember one of these stories by Kobe that like I just sit there and think about all the time. And what was absurd for me is to think he had this mindset in high school, right? And so in high school, he figured out he needed to work out twice a day, right? And so he needed this schedule, and he kind of figured out like, hey, if I go in and do, you know, 3 or 4 hour workouts, then I go home and rest and eat, and then I come back and do 3 or 4 workouts, then I go to bed, and kind of change his schedule around, right? And he kind of figured out like, hey, if I want to be, you know, one of the top players at a high school level and get drafted to the NBA, I need to work out 3 times in one day, right? And so he ended up changing his schedule to waking up at 4 in the morning. That allowed him to get another workout in and still rest and go to bed a little bit earlier, right? And so what I kind of took from Kobe is it wasn't that he was bigger, faster, or stronger. All he did was hone in on his skills and work out a little bit harder than everybody else, right? And when I heard your schedule, I was just like blown away. You know what I'm saying? I guess talk to everybody about what time you wake up, kind of what your daily regimen looks like. You know what I'm saying? And obviously, you know, we'll kind of get into a couple more things, but what is your daily schedule typically like?
So it's pretty full, and I think before we look at schedule, the first thing to really make note of is you got to ask yourself, do you really want to do this or not?
Correct.
In whatever your goal is in any industry, life, relationship.
And I guess before we even dive into the schedule, like, and I know somebody asked you this the other day, and your answer was phenomenal. But like, why do you do this? You know what I'm saying? Do you feel like it's more of the journey? Do you love, you know, do you wake up just because it's like, hey, there's a new challenge every day, and so I'm just trying to get better, or like, why do you do it?
So it sounds kind of funny, and there was an agent that had asked at a training. They said, "You look forward to getting up at 4:02 or 4:05 every single morning?"
Yeah.
And I said, "Absolutely. You don't?
Yeah.
That sucks.
Yeah.
Like, I am sorry that you don't look forward to getting up every morning and
Yeah.
accomplishing something."
Correct.
So having a competitive nature obviously is a huge part of that.
Yeah.
Right. And having, that's why I just can't play golf to have fun. Like, I
Yeah.
got at least, and I know I can't compete with a lot of those guys, but it's one of those where if I can't at least be close in scores or be under par, you
It's
know,
not fun.
yeah, it's just not going to be fun for me. So the competitive nature, obviously, that I have, and
Yeah.
just being an intense person with anything I do, I either do it or I don't at all. I mean, walked away from country club memberships and just hundreds and thousands of dollars in time a year playing golf to literally, we got done one day, walked in the clubhouse, told my buddies I was done. They thought I was kidding. I was done.
Yeah.
So you have to have the competitive nature for sure. In terms of why I do it, it's changed a little over the years, because why I did it when I started was because I liked really nice things and I wanted a certain number of rental properties.
Yep.
And I got scorned by a couple of veteran agents, just to be honest, and they didn't do anything unprofessional or wrong. They would have done the same thing as a veteran agent I do now to a brand new agent.
Yeah.
Just be like, why do you want to work with him? He doesn't know what he's doing.
Correct.
And I said, okay, well, if they're going to set the rules, I'm just going to play by them, and
Yeah.
I'll just beat them at it. I'm
Yeah.
younger, I can work harder, I can go longer. I'm just going to be a better machine than they are. And I did.
Yeah.
It took about 4 years, but in 4 years, you know, basically dethroned them.
Yeah.
So as you become a father,
Yep.
you learn really quickly that, oh, snap, he doesn't really do what I tell him to do, but he'll do what he sees me do. So if I want him to wear his seatbelt, I got to wear mine.
Correct.
You know, if I want him off his phone, if I start reading a book, he'll start reading Sports Illustrated.
Correct.
Right? And so now that I have a son, it's really important that he sees that. When we're in tournaments, you know, S-Class has the desk sitting in the front seat right now with the computer on it and everything else. I can be working on the drive up here. Had the Sprinter van with an office in it, so when I'm at tournaments and sitting in the parking lot, I'm not wasting time. I'm getting all those extra minutes and hours out of every single day.
Yeah.
So now it's become more of a, hey, all of these examples I'm trying to set for my son in terms of accountability is let me show you that I am doing the same.
Yeah.
And I was really, really proud actually when he saw some of the awards and saw nationally my ranking.
Yeah.
I think Remax had me ranked nationally at 29. And first thing he said, little shit, he said, "You suck, you got beat by 28 guys."
Yeah.
But that's the attitude I want him to have, because he's absolutely right.
Yeah.
I got beat by 28 guys.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that he saw that. And so, as I tell him all the time, it's not about trying to be number one.
It's the process.
Exactly, because being number one often is a reflection that your competition isn't any good.
Yeah.
You know, if he thinks he's number one in this sport or in this small little town, and then we go to Los Angeles or a big metro area, it's a whole different game.
Yeah.
And so it's important for me to show him that on a daily basis, that no matter where we go, where we travel for his sports,
Yeah.
because even with everything I do, I've only missed one of his games, and I still, until last year, coached everything. Now I'm just coaching football. I'm out of basketball and soccer, special teams, but still, you know, you're there 4 days a week.
Yeah.
And so it is doable. You can have a schedule like this, and actually, honestly, I think having a tight-knit schedule allows you to spend more quality time, you know, with your kids, with your spouse.
Yeah.
You know, because when we're together, we're together. It's quality time. It's not, my phone's out, we're We're
Yeah.
spending time together.
Yeah.
So that's been the biggest reason why I think is just always striving to do more or better, and just not get complacent.
Yeah.
You know, when I got into the business, my initial goal, there were two of them. The initial one was I want to be able to walk into the Mercedes dealership and buy an S-Class with a check. I wanted to do it by the time I was 21. Well, I was able to do it just before that. But as materialistic of a goal as it was, all my successful friends' dads growing up all had either a 7 Series or an S-Class. So I was like, well, I want one.
Yeah.
And then the second goal was, man, if I can make $250,000, and mind you, that's not as much as it was because
Correct.
back in the early 2000s, but if I can make 250 grand, I can have $1 million home, a $100,000 sports car, and a second house someplace.
Yeah.
Well, I hit that before year 3 and realized I can spend that a lot less than your stuff. So, you know, I was like, okay, let's raise it to 500. And then you hit 500, and then you raise it. Then you hit 750, and you're like, oh, that's getting a little better. And then I thought, I wonder if I can do more than some of my clients that are surgeons.
Yeah.
You know, so then it's like, all right, let's break that 7-figure barrier.
Yeah.
And then it's like, okay, let's see if we can get
a
little bit more, and then a little bit more. And so obviously inflation, of course, helps with that, right? I mean, J.R. Blake is a good friend of mine, played on the PGA Tour, and we used to joke when we played at Riverside Country Club with him that when he won an event on the PGA Tour, I think his check would have been when Tiger got into about 5 or 10 years in, and the payout, the purses got huge.
Correct.
I mean, if you made the cut, you were getting the size check basically he got
Correct.
for winning the tournament.
Right.
So, you know, inflation definitely makes a difference as well.
Right.
But the drive to just always be better, and what I think a lot of people, an example I use all the time with agents that ask, and I look at the production, and they're maybe, let's say, in that $250,000 income, which is very respectable. I mean, that's a great income. That's in the top 1% of the country. The problem is, if you've ever watched a triathlon start, that's what it's like in our industry. You're in that massive group jumping into the water where everybody is kicking and elbowing each other, and you're just on top of each other. It's miserable. So you've got two options. You can either get ahead of them
Correct.
and get to smooth water, or you got to drop below and behind them and get to smooth water. And dropping back obviously wasn't an option for me, so I was like, well, let's just push ahead.
Yeah.
And if they're willing to do that and make those sacrifices, I mean, it's just, I've never had anybody make the sacrifice and say they regretted it.
Correct.
Right. And a disclaimer to what Rhett's been saying, you know, based on my production and finishing X amount of transactions ahead of, you know, second place or whatnot. I think I am the only single guy in the top 5 or 10 in the state as well. And even there were a couple of great females agents that made it. I mean, just some.
And obviously that comes into play, right? You may have a little bit more time. You know what I'm saying? There might be some stuff there, but kind of just go over like what your daily schedule looks like. What time do you wake up? What time do you leave the office? You know, how you work. Obviously, let's kind of dive into that. What you know, throughout the day, what does it kind of look like for you?
So the alarm goes off at about 4:02 every morning. When I say about, it goes off at 4:02 a.m. I usually hit snooze once, and then I'm back up between 4:06 and 4:07.
Yeah.
I grew up military, so I grew up on a schedule.
Yep.
You know, everything is ready the night before. I do my exercise and training every morning just to stay fit. It makes me feel a little bit better. It gives me more energy, and the endorphins, as corny as it sounds, it's like getting you know, natural coffee in your veins.
Yep.
And then I'm behind my desk at 7 every morning.
Cool. So you're in at 7. Oh boy. And what do you do from 7 to?
So 7 to 8 is kind of like my prep period. Kind of like a teacher. I'm going through emails that come through at night. I'm just getting ready for my day, getting Tiffany, my assistant, scheduling. And I hate to even call her assistant because she's so much more than that, of course.
Yep.
I'm really a partner, but getting her schedule ready for the day as well, letting her know what she's going to have coming up because she comes in at 8. And then 8 o'clock, I start looking for some new business.
Okay.
And then, depending on the season, the time of the year, because it varies our market, but usually by 10 o'clock, then I transition into servicing business and making sure that I'm following up with my sellers, following up with the agents that showed all our properties. Then I usually head out to appointments, and then I'm back in the office to return phone calls. And then the evening usually comes around, and so again, depending on the season and depending on my son's age, now he's 14, so now practices are later, which is great, right? Practices don't start for him now till like 8, 9 o'clock.
Just because of the heat.
Yeah, and they're older.
Yep.
So the younger kids get to go earlier. So it was a little tougher when he was younger because we had practice at, you know, at the elementary school, 3:30 to 5:30 or 4:30 to 6:30, and it's like, gosh, that kills me.
Yep.
And then I'd have to go to work for 2 hours after that and follow up on any loose ends, because it was always important to me to make sure that I never went to bed or went home or took off of work before everything for the day was done, or as done as it could be.
Correct.
Right? There's a lot of factors in both of our industries, like if you don't have tax returns, or you know, if I don't have the counter offer back, there's nothing I can do.
Yep.
But I want to make sure that I have everything lined up and ready to go for the next morning, so that as soon as I get to the office, I'm being proactive, right? So we're talking basketball. I'm from LA. I'm a huge Kobe fan or Lakers fan.
Yep.
You know, these guys come out onto the court 20 minutes early, 40 minutes early. They're getting warmed up. Their shoes are tied. They're stretched out. They're ready to go. You know, tip-off doesn't happen, and then people start warming up. No, you only get 48 minutes to score as many points as you need to score.
Correct.
You need to maximize every second of every minute of that game.
Correct.
And in our industries, it's the same thing. We can't, in most cases, be on the phone with them at 10, 11 o'clock at night.
Correct.
Or 4 or 5 in the morning.
Yep.
You know, with very rare exceptions. So I have to maximize that, that amount of time. And there's a reason why I don't take lunches. I eat behind my desk or eat in the car. Or, you know, I'm a big intermittent faster, but that wasn't by design. I didn't even know there was a name for it 2 years ago. I've been doing it for 20 years. You know, it's just, I eat at night, and then I don't get a chance to eat anything until like 1 o'clock every day.
One thing that I was super amazed by, and maybe I'm going to give away your niche or your secret right here, but I don't think it's any secret, because, you know, this is what everybody should be doing. But I know you're a big believer in what's called circle prospecting. Well, circle prospecting. There we go. And I remember I was in your office one day, right? And I'm like, hey man, who are you calling right now? And I remember you pulled out a sheet of paper, and it's like, oh, this guy right here. And I said, okay, well, who's that? And he's like, well, like 6 years ago I started calling him, right? And he's like, you know, and you had all these dates on there, and for 6 years, every 3 months or 6 months, you would check in with him. And he said, I'm going to list this house today because I've been checking in with him for 6 years. And I just remember leaving your office thinking like, man, I suck. You know what I'm saying? Like, so why circle prospecting? Why circle prospecting over like buying leads or, you know, social media or, you know, whatever that looks like? Why do you circle prospect, and why has that been, you know, your way of kind of doing business?
So buying leads to me, since we've been talking sports and golf, is like buying mulligans at a fundraiser. I mean, it's just, it's fake. Now, although buying leads can actually produce real results.
Correct.
Technology really in the last couple of years has obviously gotten much better, and companies like Zillow and all these other websites have really found a way to profit on agents.
Correct.
And to be honest, in my opinion, it has really downgraded the level of professionalism in our industry, in the sense that now agents rely on this. It's almost like the drug addict relationship, right? They're relying on these leads. So my opinion of buying leads is that your top producers don't have to do that. Now, a lot of them do to implement that extra 5 to 10%. But at the end of the day, if you took all the top guys I know that sell over 200 homes a year, that make well over 7 figures a year, if you took the leads that they buy for their staffers out, their lifestyle doesn't change. They're still members of the country club. They're still driving 6-figure cars. They're still living in $1 million homes. That just is usually more for their staff. The top guys still are making the phone calls every single day. They're doing it the old-fashioned way, which still works. And you know, everybody's looking for the path of least resistance.
There we go.
And most of these agents, and I could be wrong, but most of these agents have not worked in a normal market or a down market. You know, a couple of the trainings that you came to, we did by a show of hands who worked in 2008-9. Very few of them rose their hands.
Correct.
So it'll be interesting to see, but I'm very confident in saying
like
that
when the
as
market's
the economy
up,
slows, those Zillow leads and all these other leads people are buying are going to really dry up. There'll still be some decent ones. But even in the last 2 months, I've noticed how many more buyers are just calling direct now, even circumventing their buyer's agents and calling the listing agents direct. So those leads are definitely going to dry up. And in the old reality is most of the agents aren't going to be able to afford them. So, and you're already seeing in your industry and mine as well, I think it's been 6 months now, I'm constantly getting emails from these sites that sell them, Zillow included, that this zip code opened up, this zip code opened up, this zip code opened up.
Yep.
So obviously agents are dropping out of them, whether they're not
Correct.
working or they can't afford them, I don't know, but
Yeah.
or maybe a combination of both.
Yeah.
So buying leads is not a bad way to do it, and I would never tell an agent to stop doing it,
Yep.
but I'd also say do it the right way.
Yeah. So like if you were new, right? If I was to come to you as a brand new agent and I asked you, hey Ryan, what is circle prospecting? Circle prospecting. I have a hard time saying that word for some reason. But what is it for you? Like who are you calling? Where do they come from? What are you saying? What are you doing?
So circle prospecting is basically the theory of contacting all the homeowners around a subject property that you've either just listed or just sold.
Okay.
Just basically, introducing yourself, letting them know you just listed a home. Do you know anybody that wants to move into your neighborhood?
Yep.
And then transitioning to when do you want to sell next? And we are seeing that a lot more popular now. Again, as technology has gotten better, there's services that do it for you and then just give you the phone numbers. The old days, we had to go out and knock on the doors.
Yeah.
And for all the new agents, I mean, I've always been a confident guy, but I'll be honest, my stomach used to turn knocking on doors.
Yeah.
I had to take Tums, Pepto. I hated it. I mean, I would just be sweating walking up to an expired listing.
Yeah.
And that was back when there still were expired listings.
Yeah.
So, circle prospecting is something that I think all agents, good agents, should do, and it does equate to a decent amount of business.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that should be the majority of the prospecting and the lead generation, but it definitely should be a good 30 minutes every day. And again, depending on your production, it's going to change the amount of time that you're doing it. Most of the top agents now have passed that down to their assistants, call centers, and everything else.
Cool.
But all the top guys that I know still are on the phones every single day looking for business.
And when you're calling like in those neighborhoods or whatever, letting somebody know that you've listed a property, I mean, are they pretty receptive to it? Are they wanting to know what you listed it for? What are the conversations kind of like?
Well, neighbors are always nosy, right?
Yeah.
So there's he thinks he can sell that for how much? You guys are crazy. So they usually are very receptive to it.
Cool.
And when they hear that you're calling because you want to know if anybody that wants to move into their great neighborhood, they usually want to help with that, right? I mean, they don't want a bonehead moving into their community.
It's very true.
So usually they'll at least take the call, and you're always going to get hung up on a certain number of times, but just call them back and apologize for getting disconnected and ask them again, and go from there. And so getting back to your schedule with that, so the schedules really need to have exactly, and when I say down to the minute of what you're doing.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you get stuck at the coffee machine talking to the other agents in the office.
Yeah.
You get on the phone with your wife, you end up getting on Instagram, or my bad habit's ESPN, right? I get a notification from ESPN, and I'm like, oh, what?
What's going on?
Who the Dodgers just traded, who do we pick up?
Yeah.
So it really has to be a strict regimented schedule, and like I said, as somebody who exercises, you exercise, when you go to a gym, or even if you have a home gym like I do, I know exactly what I'm doing before I step in.
Correct.
And I think
this
get
is
more
important,
done in
right?
half the amount of time, and I'm getting more volume in
Correct.
than most people get in. People say, you only work out 35 minutes a day. I'm like, tops. It's 30 to 35.
Yeah.
But I'm able to get the volume what most people get in about an hour and 20 minutes.
Yeah.
So we need to create your individual schedule the same way. And then if you have a spouse, get your spouse on board with it.
Yep.
Your kids, get your kids on board with it, so everybody feels a
Yep.
part of it. And that way you have a team effort and a united front that, hey, from this hour to this hour, this is what I'm doing, and then this hour is your time, this is date night. Kid number 1 gets this date night, kid number 2 gets this date night, and then you just follow it. And you don't break that schedule for anybody.
Yeah.
Right? And it's so interesting because most of the agents that come to our business, at mortgage, title, or real estate, insurance even, they came from a job where they had to be there at a certain time and they didn't get to leave for a certain time.
Correct.
And they don't get to be on their phones.
Correct.
So it's baffling to me. It's like, wait a second, you have an opportunity to get paid 10 to 100 times what you're making.
But
and you can't get off your phone?
But don't you feel like it's a little fear-based? And what I mean by that is, don't you feel like a lot of people are insecure about making the phone calls, or fearful of what's going to happen?
I've done this for years.
Like I think that's what's crazy to me is because we talk about this a lot, right? It's just like simply showing up.
Mm-hmm.
And even Ron talks about this, the principal broker, but it's like, if I could just get some agents to show up from 9 to 5, they would double or triple the amount of money that they could make, but I can't even get them to show up during regular hours.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? and then having a little bit of a schedule of, who are we going to contact, where are we going to go, what are we going to do, and so that's what's just kind of funny to me. Once you get in kind of this self-employed, I create my own schedule, it's one of two ways. It's either like, hey, we're going to go play a ton of golf and take a lot of time off, or hey, I can go to work and make a ton of money.
Yeah.
But I'm kind of a firm believer, talking to a bunch of loan officers, and obviously what I enjoy about the position that I'm in now is I get to interview a lot of loan officers on whether we're going to hire them or not, right? And it's almost like, are you ambitious or not? Like, what are you trying to do here? And to me, it's just one of those things where the majority of people just don't know what they're doing. Like, they legit...
They're just on that wheel, right?
They don't know what to do each day. You know what I'm saying? And you're going to laugh at this analogy, right? Like, I died because I was in an interview with a kid, right? And he was young. He's 25 years old. He's been a loan officer for 5 years, right? And I'm like, dang, dude, I didn't even start being a loan officer until I was 28. So you give me a couple more years, like, I could have murdered this way faster.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I wish I had a decade to actually get started a little bit earlier, right? But with him, I could really tell, like, he just needed a mentor. He needed, like, someone to coach him, right? Like, he didn't know what to say to agents. He didn't know how to contact agents. He didn't know one thing to do. And so I gave him an analogy because he's just, like, kind of beating himself up. But the ambition and the drive was there. So I'm like, we have to hire this kid because the kid clearly is going to go to work. He just needs to know how, right? And I used this analogy, and it popped in my head, and it just made me laugh, right? And I heard this analogy one time, and it was about a lion, right? And it was like, why is the lion the king of the jungle? So I asked this kid, I'm like, you tell me why the lion's the king of the jungle, right? And I said, can you answer that question? And he's just like, well, I don't know. And I'm like, well, what's the biggest animal in the jungle, right? And he responds, he's like, well, it's an elephant. I'm like, okay, cool. I'm like, so why is the lion the king of the jungle? He's like, I don't get what you're asking. And I said, well, is the lion the fastest? And he's like, well, no, the cheetah's the fastest. So I said, okay, cool. So I'm like, if the lion's not the biggest, the lion's not the fastest, why is he the king, right? And I said, there's something in his brain that makes him the king, right? And I think some of the best people that you've seen, it's a confidence factor, right? There's just something in them that just says, I'm going to go figure this out, and I'm going to have the confidence or the mental game to become the king of the jungle, right? And I kept on using the analogy. I said, so let's talk about the king, right? When we see kings that rule people, right? When we go to war, they send people to war. When they want to eat, they have servants bringing them food. I said, what I love about the lion is when the lion's got to eat, he's got to go to work. He has to get out the field, right?
We kill our food every day.
Correct.
Right? You and I both kill our food every day.
Right. And so what I told him is, I'm like, well, if you want to hunt, we know how to hunt. Our company knows how to hunt. We got a schedule for you. I've got a conveyor belt for you. You know what I'm saying? We're going to teach you how to approach agents. We're going to teach you what to say to agents. We've got the products to back us in order to help the clients win as well. And I ended up just saying to him, I'm like, this is all I'm going to say to you is, if you want to be a lion and come hunt, come hunt. If you don't want to be a lion, just stay where you're at, right? Next day he calls me up. He's like, bro, I'm ready to hunt. And I just sat there and laughed because I'm like, why would that analogy pop in my head? But to me, it's no different for you, right? I mean, what I've loved about you getting to know you is it's just like, bro, not only do you go hunt for yourself, but I think you give back, right? And I think that's the personality that I'm very attracted to, is to watch you give to other people, right? When we go to dinner, you're the first one to rip the credit card out. And it's not to show that, like, you're rich or you're wealthy. What I view it as is like, hey, you value our friendship, and you're investing in me, just like I'm investing in you. You know what I'm saying? And I don't know if you kind of feel that same way with your money. I know you make quite a bit of money, you make a lot of money, but do you get a fulfillment of joy out of kind of helping people out?
Absolutely. It's one of those things where, gift giving is one of my love languages, right? So I do enjoy that.
I didn't know.
I do that a lot with, youth sports,
Yeah.
uniforms, shoes, backpacks, hats, gear. I mean, our teams are always geared up, and
Yeah.
and that's something that obviously when you work really hard, you can do.
Correct.
I don't get the opportunity to spend as much time with some of the kids that I coach outside of the field or outside the court as I would like to, and some of the other coaches are able to do that because they work a 9 to 5, and so they can do some of those team functions where, I don't have all that extra spare time, but then we can make sure that we focus on, you guys work hard, we'll get you the best uniforms there are. I mean, basketball team had the same jerseys Gonzaga wore last year.
Yeah.
And did them for the high school boys as well. Stickers on all the football helmets, and I mean, it is fun, and that's why it's interesting because people always say, well, money doesn't bring I get the point and concept of that. And
Yeah.
you're right, a Ferrari or a Lamborghini or a Rolex or
Correct.
a membership at a country club is not going to make you happy. But when
Correct.
when you realize how much joy you can bring to other people's lives and unfortunate people's lives, whether it's to help pay for a surgery or whether it's to donate to certain programs or, you know, contribute to a humanitarian trip so that doctors can go fix cleft palates. I mean, that feels good.
Yeah.
And those are things that a lot of people don't get to experience, unfortunately. Yeah, and they can give in other ways, of course, right? But it is really, really, really rewarding. And it really is a high. I mean, it really is a high to know that you're helping people and kids. And with sports, of course, it's always, hey guys, you know, I'm just here to try to teach you to work as hard as you possibly can and use what they can learn in sports, whether it's the politics like referees or, you know, getting picked for a team or cut from a team because of the politics of your parents, your school district, adversity, not giving up, diving for loose balls, doing all of the things, you know, the ugly side of success, right?
Yeah.
Offensive line, you know, those guys don't get a lot of glory. The most important guys on my team, right? I mean, my special teams guys, my kickers, my punters, I mean, those guys are controlling a lot of the game. And so I always tell my receivers, make sure you thank your line every time you go score a touchdown because it doesn't happen without them. And hopefully they take that and can translate that to real life.
Yeah.
Right? If they're going to be a doctor, they need their staff. If they're going to be an attorney, they need their paralegals. If they're going to be in my business, they're going to need their staff and assistants as well because I can't do it without Tiffany. In fact, I always say when we go to these award ceremonies and stuff that we hate going to, is that I mean it's more her award than it is mine because she does the work of like 4 or 5 people.
Yeah.
You know, I do the easy part. You know, I list them, get them under contract, and then she's managing all the emotions to get them to close. You know, and coordinating all the, you know, the marketing and everything else. So I think that's a great example. And we have to go out and kill our food every single day. And that translates again back to, you know, do you get a coach? If you don't want to hunt, don't waste your time. It's a waste of money.
Correct. Correct.
It's just not going to do you any good because you're not going to have the drive to get it to the next level with the coach.
No, I want to shift into like your son for a minute, right? Like obviously I've got 3 little girls. How do you manage your time? Like especially when he was young and now he's what, 14 years old? Is that what he is now? Like over the last 14 years, how do you feel like, you know, how did you manage your time when he was little and how does it look now and how do you know, how does he feel with kind of the work schedule and work ethic that you have?
So my father owning sporting goods stores. I grew up behind the counter, working on the counter, and my dad wasn't able to make it to a lot of my games, hardly any games, because he owned a business. And you know, you own a business, like you said, if you're going to be successful, then guess what? You're going to be behind the desk, behind the counter, in the office every day, and so I never resented him for that. In fact, I was very appreciative of how hard he worked because I always had whatever I wanted. If I needed new skates or new cleats or whatever else, I always had them, and then some. So my son's been kind of the same way. So his mom and I got divorced. I think he was 3.
Okay.
And that was really eye-opening for me.
Okay. In what way?
In the way that I realized, oh shit, I'm going to be a single dad.
Yeah.
I got to step up now, and how are we going to make this work?
Yeah.
So it was a pretty quick transition, but the first thing I did was start reaching out to buddies that had successful marriages and relationships and who I thought were good dads and said, what do you think I can do? And most of them all had very successful older boys, either at the high school or college level in sports and academics and everything. And they said, time is the only thing that really truly matters. You can tell your kid whatever you want, you can do this, do that, but time is what's going to keep them out of trouble and keep them pointed in the right direction. Okay. So I was like, well shit, that's the one thing I don't have. So basically I just made the commitment. I'm going to be Paw Patrol dad, I'm going to be room parent, I'm going to do those things, and that's just what I did. You just crammed it into the schedule. Yeah. And I had to push some things a little earlier, and I had to push some things a little later, and it worked. Yeah. I mean, obviously we're not done raising him yet, so but it's worked great, and it's gotten easier as he's gotten older, of course, because now his schedule. Yeah, he's got more stuff going on. Exactly. Yeah. And he's also to the age now where he just wants to do his own thing and everything, and even after games doesn't want to hang out with me. But then the parenting also gets a lot more complicated because now there's real problems. You know, I get a call from the police department the other night saying, I think we found your golf cart abandoned and it ran into a brand new Escalade, and you know, fortunately my son wasn't involved with it.
Yeah.
Now I'm getting those kind of calls. So I would say by the time he was 5, I really had, in my opinion, felt like I had a good setup and program where I just added him to the schedule. And that may sound horrible to some people that I added him to the schedule, but that's what you have to do.
But I think we all do that at some extent.
And my quality time with him was so much better because I realized I'd come home when he was a baby, and yeah, he would be sitting on the couch with me or whatever else, but I was doing other things. I wasn't actively holding him or talking to him or helping him swing a golf club or kick a soccer ball or throw a football or catch a football. And so now I realized when I was like, okay, we're going to dinner together, we're talking, we're doing coloring books while we're eating out. And then as he got a little older, 3rd, 4th, 5th grade, we'd get done with practice, we'd go to either, you know, St. George doesn't have a lot of options, so we'd go to Outback or Red Lobster, Chili's, you know, whatever restaurant he wanted to go to, and we would do homework there, and we would just talk and you know, find out what's going on in his life and how he's feeling about things and do the homework there. Then we'd go home and usually watch a movie, playing with G.I. Joes. I mean, that was one thing, honestly, as corny as it sounds, that's one thing that I kind of miss. I mean, I still saved all his G.I. Joes. He just doesn't play with them anymore. I remember when, you know, you walk into the shower at, you know, 5 in the morning and step on G.I. Joe and lose your mind. But,
awesome.
So you just have to find ways to implement it into the schedule, and it is a priority because the most important job I have is being a dad.
Correct.
And it's interesting because I think one thing people do say about me that know me from Southern Utah is that he is a good dad.
Yeah.
I mean, they can say a lot of other things about me. But they'll say I'm a good dad.
Yeah.
And put a lot of time into it, a lot of energy, and a lot of focus. I'm not saying everything I do is the best way or the right way, but I'm there, I'm present, I'm an active dad. You know, I know all the friends, I know all the parents. You know, I've coached everything, or been an assistant coach for everything. So you just have to make the commitment, and then you just have to do it.
Yeah.
And like I said, once it was on the schedule,
pretty easy.
The quality time was just, I mean, what I get out of an hour with them is probably, I'm going to guess, what the average parent gets in a day.
Because that's what I kind of feel, right? Like, as my career has gotten a lot busier, as I started traveling, you know what I'm saying, hiring people, training people, kind of running the whole mortgage side of stuff, I felt like there was a lot of judgment, right? And the judgment was like, hey, dude, you're gone a lot. Hey, dude, you're coming home late. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, well, A, you don't really know what I'm doing the whole day. You're just barely catching some glimpses of it. And B, it's like, hey, bro, you work 9 to 5. And oh, by the way, when you come home, you're watching Steph Curry play and you're on your phone. And when I come home, I haven't seen Steph Curry hit a shot in a long time. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but they don't see you. I mean, the first time I met your wife was on a FaceTime because I barged into your office. And you're on a FaceTime with your girls.
Correct.
With the door shut. And I was the a-hole that walked in and just barged in. You know? And so you're right. They don't see all that stuff. Now, here's an interesting thing I've noticed as well.
Yeah.
I've never had somebody more successful come to me. So going back to your analogy about hunting.
Correct.
There's another one about wolf don't give a shit what sheep think.
Correct.
Right? And that is a mentality you're going to have. And I say my kids that I coach, I remember, because I'm a very loud, obnoxious coach, never putting down the kids, but always holding them to give me the, you know, to the highest level of accountability. I want 110% effort, 100% of the time, we're going balls to the walls. We're emptying the tank every time we play, no matter what. Full court press, everything, right?
Yeah.
When the kids got into about 5th grade and we were really traveling, playing basketball tournaments and so forth, and I'm just the assistant coach for basketball, but I had some of the kids come to me who I've had since kindergarten, 1st grade, so they know me really well. And I said, Coach, my friends wanted to come to tryouts, but the parents said they'd never let them play for you. And I said, well, do you want them to play on our team? It's like, no. Like, then why do you care?
Yeah.
Those parents won't let them play.
Yeah.
And I told the kid, Cutter, I said, Cutter, you know, remember when we went down to Vegas, first time ever? We'd never lost a game in St. George.
Yeah.
We get down to Vegas, we lose by 63. Right?
Yeah.
You guys were crying, I was crying, your parents were crying, you guys got outplayed, I got outcoached, the other team outparented us. Did that coach say anything about me being loud or obnoxious? Because I was still just as loud the entire game trying to cheer you guys on from half court.
Yeah.
Because you guys kept playing. Right? Coach called off the full court press in the 3rd quarter. I said, bullshit, keep the press going because it's the only way we're going to get better.
Correct.
So he started to understand, as did some of the other kids, that it's like, And that's why I think sports is so great for young boys and girls, because they get to see so much of life before they get into life.
Correct.
And that was, yeah, the people with less, or the people that aren't willing to work as hard to get what we have, are the ones that are always bitching and complaining and making excuses. I have a hard time when people come and say, well, you don't do enough of this, or you don't do enough of this. And, you know.
And it's funny, right? Because more of anything, it's just the judgment. To me, it's kind of like, well, that's your insecurity as a parent. And oh, you may be a little bit jealous of what we have or what we're doing. You know what I'm saying? I kind of try and have a little bit of empathy on where they're coming, because it's like, yeah, dude, you're not in a position to succeed like I am, right? And my attitude is always like, hey, we've kind of got the same hours in the day. I just choose to do something different with them. You know what I'm saying? But what's funny to me, raising all girls, right? We're obviously in a different situation. Yep. I raise all girls. You got a little boy. Like, dude, I catch 30 minutes of SportsCenter and that's it.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I don't know what's going on, because if I come home, we're watching, you know, something with dance or playing with Barbies, or, you know, we're out riding bikes, or we're doing something. And I feel like it's funny. I always make fun of my father-in-law, because he raised all girls, and so when he tries to talk sports, right, you can tell he's completely in left field. He has no idea what's going on. But you just kind of sit there and chat with him, like, yeah, dude, whatever, right? Yeah. And I keep joking with my wife. I'm like, the longer we go, I'm turning into your dad, right? But it's just, I don't got boys, right? We're not in that thing. We're you know, we're dance, we're soccer, we're t-ball right now. You know, we're not sitting down watching games or anything like that. So it's funny to kind of, you know, watch this thing play out. But yeah, that's kind of where I go with this. Is it's just like, people just don't understand how hard we work, but the amount of time we put into when we're home, or when we see them, or the vacations, or the retreats, or the little trips that we go on them with to support them. You know what I'm saying? And the quality time of just being there, right? We're fortunate enough to be able to travel with them, right? Some parents just can't. You know what I'm saying? So no, I love that. I kind of want to shift this just a little bit, obviously, before we end, but talk to me about positivity for you, momentum. Are those two words that you kind of believe in, that you kind of...
Momentum, yes. Positivity, no.
Okay. And elaborate on that.
So momentum is huge, obviously, like anything else. Again, going back to sports, you can watch a game and see the momentum change, especially soccer. Basketball's a little bit tougher one, because the score changes quicker, but baseball, you can see runs getting earned, and then soccer especially, you can see, oh, holy cow, the momentum's changed in this game. The other team's going to take the lead, or come back. And so momentum is huge, because that does build the confidence and everything else, right? It's just like sports. You get on a hot streak or birdie streak, anything else, just you get the shanks, and it's like, oh, hell. It's the total opposite, right? So momentum is always huge. And again, enthusiasm is so much of what we do in our industries.
Correct.
Even if you don't know what you're doing, just being enthusiastic and showing people you want to help and care about helping and succeeding, you helping them helps you, because that's how you get paid. So, big time into momentum. Positivity, I think, is bullshit.
And I think you're viewing positivity as the rah-rah. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. I'm viewing it as positive versus pessimistic. Which person are you in life? Are you...
So I actually consider myself a realist.
Awesome.
Which is...
And I believe that's kind of who I am as well.
Right, and so a lot of normal people, a realist is a pessimist to them.
Correct.
Because when I say I'm a short guy, I'm 5'7", 181 pounds, that sounds... it is what it is.
Correct.
You know, I mean, if I said I average 12 points a game or whatever else, or my handicap is this, that's what it is.
Correct.
And so I do believe in positivity / enthusiasm when you're with the client.
Yep.
Because again, they're paying me to be the professional.
Yep.
Right? I don't want my attorney to be getting all emotional when he's going into court.
Yep.
So...
Do you feel like being a realist puts a little bit of a chip on your shoulder, which gives you that competitive edge?
Two of the best God-given things that I feel like I have or have honed is, number one, the work ethic and the ability to be a machine.
Correct.
I got that from my father, my grandparents. You know, my son seems to be the same way with his sports and the trainings and working hard as well. So we obviously got very lucky about that. We enjoy that process and journey of, you know, the ugly side of success.
Yep.
In terms of that momentum again, and the positivity aspect of it, I've always been able to be objective with myself, right? And that's one skill that I've really tried to push to not only my son, but all the other kids I coach, and that is simple. Rome, my son's name is Rome. You're not going to score as many points as McKay.
Yep.
Not at least right now. McKay's putting up 24 points a game, you're getting 6 or 7. You want to earn a spot on the team, you're my 6th man. For now, at least, until you hit a huge growth spurt, I need steals, charges, offensive rebounds, bro.
Yep.
You got to know and be objective enough to say, if I'm going to do this, how can I succeed?
Yeah.
The majority of the agents that I beat are far more skilled than I am.
Correct.
I just outwork their ass.
Correct. Do you feel like a lot of that is just self-awareness, though?
It is. Yeah, I think that's a good way
to.
to put it, absolutely. And again, I think too many people just either have too big of an ego or too insecure.
Correct.
I think we all have insecurities.
Exactly.
The fear of failure is, I think, one reason why so many of us are successful.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think with athletes as well.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, most successful well, I shouldn't say the most successful. The most feared boxer of all time, Mike Tyson, was the most insecure guy in the world.
Correct.
You know, until he got in the ring and just destroyed people, or maybe that's where he took it out. I mean, you know, you want to talk about hunting. That's what the guy did, right?
Yeah.
And again, that's, you know, I remember showing him when my son met him in Vegas, all the Olympic videos, because my son heard me call him the champ.
Yeah.
He's like, he's a champ?
Yeah.
And I said, go shake his hand, and he realized, what did he play? Because he was really muscular, right?
Yeah.
And anyway, we showed him the videos. My kid was just in awe of what he did to people in 8 to 12 seconds
Yeah.
against the best in the world.
Yeah.
So, you know, that's that intensity and that killer instinct that I think you need to take to everything. And not just work. Take it to your relationship with your kids, to be the best and be competitive. And, you know, do the same with your spouse and to try to be the best you can be in the relationship. Because obviously if you have the support of the spouse and the kids, it makes your life a lot easier.
Yeah.
Right? And that's somewhere where, to be honest with you, I've failed. I've failed in my last 2 relationships, 6 years and 9 years, because I wasn't able to juggle them, or I took them for granted, or I just kind of put them on the back burner and didn't communicate the way I should have in those relationships. Obviously, I learned from it, I'm hoping, so I'm hoping the third one goes well. You know, it's one of those where we're all human, we all make mistakes, but hopefully you don't keep repeating the same mistakes over and over again.
Correct.
And so, you know, being a realist has helped, the work ethic has helped, but we definitely want to know who we are and what we want out of it, because that'll save 90% of people from getting into the business. You asked for an interesting statistic, and I guess the way I answer this would probably tell you kind of how I look at things, but some people would say 13% of realtors succeed, which really means half of that succeed, because what they base succeed off of, you and I would look at it and say, you're not a successful realtor. You haven't succeeded in this business at all.
Yeah.
Or you could say 87% failed.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I say 87% failed is the way I like to look at that. Because that's just the real number. And I feel like too many people need coaching for that, you know, make me feel good, build me up. And if that's the case, this is probably not the best industry for you. It really probably isn't. Get into maybe insurance.
Yeah.
You know, or something where, you still have to go kill your food, but it's not quite as, you're not competing on a daily basis against other agents or other lenders where we're going at it, you know, fighting for that business.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
But it's been a great business.
Yeah.
You know, so it's no regrets there. I mean, obviously I would have loved to have been a doctor or something else. Sometimes, even though I make more than most, just as you do, you know, I mean, we see the financials, and I look at what a lot of my surgeons make and a lot of my doctors make, and I'm like, damn, I didn't have $5,000-$6,000 in student loans.
I know, right?
And not start making money until I was
37. Yeah, exactly.
To be a certain 37, doctor, maybe 30, but it's like,
no, and I mean, to kind of play off that, right, it was funny, we were chatting the other day, and what's funny in our industry, and I would say in most sales jobs, right, it's like everybody's trying to be a perfectionist, right, whatever that is, whatever perfection is, but we started to laugh, right, about like, you know, to be one of the highest paid athletes, let's just say in baseball, you don't even bat 40%, you don't even hit the ball 40% of the time, right, to be one of the best basketball players in the world, you shoot sub, you know, 50% of the time, right? Soccer players, the stats are even worse, right? Yeah. But when you look at it, it's like, hey, they're some of the highest paid individuals in the world. Look at
golf.
Yeah, golf, for example. Yeah, Tiger dominates, but it's what, less than 20% of the time, and he's an anomaly. Yeah. You know what I'm saying, when he tees it up? So it's just funny. Why do you think it's so hard for like us to this industry? I shouldn't really say us, but this industry in general to comprehend. Hey, the majority of at-bats you may not win, right? Or when you lose a client, like, how do you overcome that, or you know?
Well, fortunately, having a sports background and having to always be a scrapper my whole life, I never had to deal with that battle. You know, coming in as a kid that used to have to take charges in basketball and do all the ugly stuff to get on a team, right? It wasn't dropping threes, that's for damn sure. It wasn't being a phenomenal point guard getting 14 assists a game. So
Yeah.
having to do all the ugly things growing up my whole life in sports to succeed and get on good teams, I think really made it easier when I got into life because it was no different.
Yeah.
Right? And so why do so many people struggle with that? They're just, and I hate to say it, but it's just, I feel like at the end of the day, it's almost like they want to come up with excuses or whine that they didn't get the deal or they went with another agent that's a friend of theirs or blah, 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 blah.
Do you feel like it's sometimes fear of actually not knowing where the next client's coming from?
I'm sure deep down inside, absolutely.
Yeah, there's a little bit of the insecurity side.
I'm wired a little bit differently, where it's just like, great, you went with another agent, congratulations, I hope it works out. If it didn't, give me a call. Next. Yeah. Right? I tell the kids I coach all the time in basketball, you miss a three-pointer or a layup, whatever else, show no emotion.
Correct.
No big deal.
Let's get back.
Just either get back on defense or get the next steal and let's get another one.
Yeah.
But you sitting there pounding her if they think they get fouled, right? They want to whine and do the LeBron shit. And do all, it's just like, you're out. Come sit down. Just get back in the game.
Correct.
Right? And it's the same thing in life. Okay, it didn't work out. Great. Get back out there and make it happen. And sometimes you do have to fake it a little bit. People have a hard time, again, just being objective with themselves and almost are looking for excuses so that they don't have to succeed.
Correct.
Or do the hard stuff to succeed.
Correct.
And
to me, it just kind of comes back to like, I don't know if this is for you, but it's like, number one, working pretty hard, right? Obviously, if you're going to sit there and prospect, the odds are the more at-bats, the more phone calls you make, the more opportunities you have, right? But I also feel like, I just feel like so many people just don't get the proper training, right? Whether it's egotistical or they think they're going to go prove somebody wrong, to me, it's just funny at how many, like even in your office, right? Like what I'm always blown away by is you've been the number one person in the state of Utah for, a couple years now. And it's like, how many times do you actually get approached on what you're doing? You know what I'm saying? And it's like, there's quite a few people in the brokerage that probably don't even talk to you, don't even want to know, right? And don't get me wrong, your wants and needs are completely different than a lot of other people's. But for me, I'm always the one that's very curious on like, so what is Ryan doing, right? Me asking you about circle prospecting and here you're calling, I'm like, can I implement that in my system? So I'm going to ask him about it. And then I'm going to go digest this and judge it and then sit there and say like, hey, I should probably start doing that, right? And especially it's more prevalent now than ever because of the market shifting, right? Your experience, so, you've obviously been doing this for quite a while now. Talk to us about like market conditions, where you think we're headed, what's kind of going on, kind of, I guess, the frustrations you're having now that we didn't have 6 months ago. What do you think is going to kind of happen on in the market?
Well, so right now it's obviously no secret. The stats are the stats. So you just see that inventory has gone up.
Yep.
Sales have gone down. Interest rates have gone up as well, which doesn't help. And most importantly, though, again, it's not what the numbers are. It's the consumer psychology is completely flipped. And where 6-7 months ago it was buy a home at any and all cost. Give them your firstborn if you have to get into the house, right? I mean, the love letters we were getting from buyers begging and so forth, and some of them are sad, but at the end of the day, that now has switched.
Correct.
And what people don't realize, because I've done this in enough markets now, where God made the universe weird, right? Like you get out of shape faster than you get into shape. You lose your swing faster than you find it. Putting stroke, same way, right?
Yeah.
So when we look at markets, look at how fast it got to that level. Right? Was it like March 12, 2020, Rudy Gobert shuts down the NBA, 2 weeks of nothing, April comes around the corner and it just, boom, just goes. And then just keeps exponentially growing. So it grew at a really fast rate. Well, again, things always tend to get worse than they get better.
Yep.
So that's exactly what happened. And they haven't, the numbers and the comps haven't gotten worse necessarily yet. But again, buyers are now writing offers on multiple properties to see who gives them the best deal. The sellers that think they can still not do any inspection repairs, the buyers are canceling and moving on to other homes. And so this initial wave of buyers right now, most of them buying today, I'm pretty confident saying they were the same buyers that were getting punished 2 and 3 months ago. So now they feel like it's our turn.
Correct.
I'm going to give it to these sellers right now.
Correct.
So the good news is by the end of summer, most of them should be in homes or they'll just quit the home buying process.
Correct.
And then we'll be with a whole new group of buyers and sellers. buyers that have just sold, and they tend to have the same attitude, and so it should level back out. But what do I think will happen? The bigger the boom, the bigger the bust, right?
Yep.
The hotter the birdie streak, the bigger the bogey streak. Usually, I mean, that's just the way God made it. It's just, I don't know how to explain it, but
yeah.
History tells us, again, in most cases, the higher you go up, the higher you have to go down to come back to that median pricing.
Yep.
So does that mean it's a recession? Does it mean it's a crash? Everybody's adjectives are so different, but
correct.
Definitely prepare for a substantial correction.
Correct.
And even just with rates going up in Utah, we have so many families that move laterally because lenders like you did a good job letting them know what their rates were, and that they could go buy a more expensive, newer home and their payment would actually go down, and realtors like us were pitching them on the same thing. So
yep.
It seems like, and I don't have any hard data to back this up, but just knowing in these really good family communities like in Little Valley and Washington Hills in southern Utah, you just had a lot of lateral movers.
Yeah.
Right? I'm going to sell my $1 million and go buy $1.1 million or $1.2 million that has the pool or the bigger garage. They're all gone now.
Yeah.
Their payments have gone up over $883. They're not moving. So 30% of the market basically disappeared overnight.
Yeah.
And then how many aren't qualifying now for what they need? I mean, that's a whole other ballgame. So before we can transition into other aspects of seller financing maybe and assumable loans, like you came out with, hey, let's find ways so sellers don't have to drop price, but buyers can still get into those homes so they can still sell their homes. So let's do seller buy downs. Let's buy down that interest rate.
Yep.
It's a fraction of the price of dropping the price of the home.
Yep.
So, doing things like that will help as well, but it's going to take time to transition. And quite honestly, I'm going to say confidently, when I look at the agent rosters, 90% aren't going to know how to make this work.
Correct.
They've never seen an assumable loan. They've never done a seller buy down.
Yep.
They've never done seller financing.
And I think that's what I'm blown away by, right? Like, I'm not the greatest salesman in the world, but what's been funny to me sometimes is it's like, that marketing piece that was made or whatever, it's like, we're trying to create a win-win, right? And I don't know, like, in my 9-year career, all we try to do is add value to agents and help them sell more real estate. Mm-hmm. And so now, since the market's turning, it's like, sellers are, getting price reductions of $20,000, $30,000, $40,000, right? And maybe that's good because the market's got to correct and they need to come back down, because for a long time there, you were just throwing it up at whatever price and it was taking off, right? Yeah. But now it's kind of turned into like, hey, I need my buyer to buy a house. Hey, we actually need to bring this rate down so they actually qualify. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Just because homes right now, like, you really can't get into a home under $600,000. But there's a lot of people that can't even afford something like that. So now it's just about how do us as the lenders add value to somebody like you, right? And so that's where the mindset goes as far as salesmanship. I'm like, hey, well, how do we add value to the seller? How do we add value to the buyer? And how do we bring them together?
Well, I think realtors need to shift their thinking because I've always said, and I have a big ego, but I've always said the most important person in the transaction is always the lender, if it's not cash. Yeah. And the reason for that being is it doesn't matter how good I am, how good the buyer's agent is, how good the title company is. If the money doesn't show up, we ain't got a deal.
Correct.
And I don't want to finance it myself, so,
Yeah.
Agents are going to need to make sure they get with lenders like you that day in and day out get the job done because that's getting everybody in the transaction paid, the seller, the agents, and the buyer into a home.
Correct.
So they'll have to flip that thinking a little bit.
And I'm excited for this, you know what I'm saying? Because for 3 years now, we haven't really seen seller pay closing costs, and to watch this thing flip, I mean, people are going to get super excited. Now they're thinking they're getting a deal, $20,000, $30,000 less, plus some seller pay closing costs. They get a little bit better interest rate. That's kind of what I get excited for. I know we've chatted about this a little bit, when the market dipped last time, you got super excited because it was like more people got out and my volume went up. Mm-hmm. Explain that. Do you think that's going to happen again for you?
I definitely do, and it won't just happen for me. It'll happen for you. It'll happen for the top guys in title. It'll happen to a lot of industries. Same thing with builders.
Yeah.
So if you look at, if you go to that stat again, we talked about 87% of realtors fail. Well, historically, in a normal recession, you lose a little over 70% of your agents.
That's wild.
Right? So if deals drop 50%,
yep,
which historically they don't drop 50%. I mean, if we look at the best year Washington County ever had was 2005. I think it was 7,984 sales.
Okay.
It didn't drop 50%.
Yeah.
It dropped a lot, but not 50%.
Yeah.
Close. And that supposedly was one of the worst downturns we've ever had.
Okay.
So you lose more competition than you do deals. So now I'm not competing with the barber, the stylist, the lash technician, the bishop, the little league coach, the priest, the rap.
They're gone.
Yeah.
They're back to work.
And commissions go back up.
Yeah.
And short sales come back. Right? We've already listed 3 short sales just in the last month.
Wow.
Well, it would have been last month. So yeah.
Yeah.
We're starting to see some of those again now.
Yeah, that's why.
So
I mean, for obviously, I obviously get excited, right? I mean, as refi booms come up, you see all these mortgage companies just sit here and pop up, and then it's almost like, kind of like your industry. The better, the more success there is in the industry, it's like first one to the bottom wins, right? And what's funny to me, I don't know why this always makes me laugh about our clientele, but it's like, we get shopped, right? And we get beat up on, you know, cost to list a house or a buyer's agents or whatever, like we shouldn't make our commission, or, you know, we should do lower rates for people. But if you really think about it, everybody's in a salesmanship position, right? I don't care if you work under the desk, your boss has to sell something, right? And so if your boss got beat up every freaking time, you probably wouldn't have a job.
Yeah.
And so it's funny to me, kind of being a loan officer in the industry, in a competitive market, it's like everybody wants to sit there and shop us. Everybody wants the best deal.
Yep.
But then when I look at it, I'm like, well, dang, man, you sell cars. So should I just come beat you up? Should I have every single client just come beat you up on car sales and make sure you make no money? And I don't know why that's always resonated me with this industry. And I get it, right? They're buying a $600,000 house. They got to pay interest on it. I understand the whole philosophy behind why they want the best deal. But I think for me, you know, being the cheapest in the industry actually puts you out of business. Mm-hmm. It doesn't keep you in business, you know. And so being very fair priced, you know, like yourself, whatever we got to do there, I think that's super important for the consumer to kind of understand, because at the end of the day, everybody works in some type of sales job. Everybody's got to make money. You know what I'm saying? And so I don't know how you kind of feel about that. You know, I obviously understand, like, we've got to do what's best for the client. We've got to add as much value as we possibly can. But what's kind of your take on, you know, how clients deal with you as far as listing, or, you know, how much you make off of properties and stuff like that? How do you combat it?
So I always try to explain to the client that I would never ask you to sign a contract that I wouldn't sign.
Correct.
And are you looking for a great deal in most cases? Absolutely. Am I looking for great deals when I buy stuff? Absolutely. So
correct.
Let's find a fair price that you feel good about, right?
Yep.
And I'm obviously, based on my stats, bringing a great amount of value to the table and experience and success. So my track record is far better than everybody you know from your sphere of influence that's a realtor.
Yeah.
So what number is good? Your buddy wants to charge you 6%, sells less homes a year than I sell a month, maybe even in a 2-week period sometimes.
Yep.
I can give you a better deal than that, but what is a fair number?
Correct.
You know, and usually when you ask them, what do you think would be fair? And take them out of that, I'm just beating you to a bloody pulp.
Yep.
Then they usually come up with a number that's fair,
yeah,
to be honest with you.
Yeah.
But I feel like too many agents get defensive too quick. And I understand why they do, just like the seller wants to beat them up. But rather than get defensive, just say, I understand you're looking for the best deal.
Yeah.
And just talk them through it.
Yeah.
And then usually they actually do come up with a good number.
Yeah.
Say, I want a relationship. I want the next home too, and the next home, and the next home, and then I want your kids home. I've been in business long enough now. I'm feeling like the old man, because not only the gray hair, but I'm working with my clients' grandkids buying houses for them now, selling houses for them. It's like, holy yeah, I'm on the 3rd generation. It's been a long time. So, and I've been fortunate because I've been in the business for a long time, and I've taken care of clients over the years. Even when I've had 3 or 4 clients in the last 2 months come to me on $1 million properties that they knew they'd have no problem selling.
Yeah.
And said, we're going to do this. You've always taken care of us when things were tough.
Yeah.
Right. So,
that's awesome.
Again, treating people the way you want to be treated, I know it's a golden rule, but at the end of the day, as long as you vocalize that to the clients, most of them are going to be fair with you.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you feel like you're always doing the right thing? Do you feel like the right thing is always the right thing?
You try to, right? I mean, I don't ever like to be doing anything I don't feel good about.
Correct.
And I definitely don't do anything that I think is the wrong thing to do. But I've always kind of governed myself on that. Hey, what would I feel comfortable signing if I were the client here?
Correct.
Let's pitch it this way.
Correct.
Let's structure it that way.
Correct.
Obviously, the industry with technology and everything else has had immense changes, and like you said, everybody's popped up shop all over the place, and as fast as they come in, they leave just as fast.
Correct.
You know, and so.
Yeah. What's funny to me about, like, especially my industry, dude, is it's more of like people just don't have patience, or they don't have, you know, I always make this joke that we're firefighters, right? Like, legit every day we're putting out fires, right? And you can react one of two ways. You can either get super pissed and super mad at the client to try and help them understand, or you can come from kind of a loving atmosphere and be super patient with them. You know, over your career, do you feel like you're pretty decently patient with people on helping them understand what's going on and walking them through it and adding that type of value?
Yeah, overall, absolutely. And being human and making mistakes, I'd say once a year I have to call a client back and apologize.
Yeah.
Maybe I didn't eat that day, or whatever it is, you're having a bad day, or your kid's pissing you off, or you know, you had 6 deals canceled, or who knows what it is, but you're having a bad day and you respond in an unprofessional tone. And I do believe that we have to be professionals. That's what we're paid for.
Correct.
And there's a reason, like when I sell my own properties, Tiffany will tell you, she doesn't let me communicate with the other agent, because if I get an inspection with us, I'm going to tell them to fly a kite, blah, 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 blah. Right? It's just like one of my dear friends, only time as the top family law attorney in the state he's ever been put in cuffs or held in contempt was when he was trying to represent himself in his own divorce, because he couldn't be professional and shut his mouth.
Yeah.
But he does a great job for clients.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, he's represented some of the biggest divorces in the entire state. So, you know, yes, short answer is yes. I feel like I'm good about talking it through with the clients. And I think as you get into the business for a longer period of time, you understand as well, is it a male or female? And then you have to decide what kind of personality do they have.
Yeah.
Because if you're dealing with me, it's actually better if you just tell me to stop acting like an effing butthead. And, you know, and so.
Well, I kind of feel like don't you feel like a lot of it, though, is experience? You've been through it, so it's easier to kind of understand. Because I think a lot of the emotion comes from not knowing what the outcome is.
Absolutely. Right? So, absolutely. And so even just something as simple as saying, this sucks.
Yeah.
This sucks. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And there are times when I tell clients, hey, just keep getting it out.
Yeah.
We got 10 more minutes if you want. Just keep spilling the beans, tear me apart, do whatever you have to, because tomorrow I'm still going to be here representing you, looking out for your best interest.
Yeah.
I'd rather have you take it out on me than on the next buyer. So get it all out. And usually once they get it out, they feel good about it, and then you're going to save the relationship with them as well.
Correct.
Sometimes you have those clients so that you just have to put them back in their place, because they will continue to get worse and worse and worse every single time, or demand more, or call at 11 midnight and then 2, 3 in the morning and expect updates and so forth. And so the vast majority of people are good people that we work with on a daily basis.
Yeah.
So they're human like us, they have emotions like us, and they're stressed like us. And we as agents and lenders, forget we do this all the day. I mean, you have a deal fall apart, a buyer doesn't get into a home, you got 30 others in the pipeline ready to close.
Correct.
You're still going to the country club, right? But I think one reason why we're so good at it is because we do care about that 1 out of 30 we didn't get, and we're going to try to fix it, figure it out, and
move forward.
Get it done.
And a lot of that's just another experience. You know what I'm saying? It's just dealing with a different personality, or something new in the guidelines, or something happened on the house. Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
So, I mean, let's be honest, you know, I appreciate you being dignified and saying that, yeah, sometimes you make a mistake, sometimes we all do. But at the end of the day, in our industry, unfortunately, when you're dealing with a professional like yourself or myself or some of our top colleagues in our industry, we don't make very many mistakes, right? We don't call a timeout when we don't have one, right? We don't pull a Chris Webb. We don't make those kind of mistakes.
Yeah,
we don't
I'll never. That's exactly it.
Right.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the majority of the issues in our industry that I see, especially on the lending side, are buyers not disclosing the truth about their income, or where the money came from, or where their down payments came from.
That's how I kind of feel, right? I mean, a lender's just not a lender. An agent's just not an agent, right? And that's what's funny to me, because like, when it's the race to the bottom, as far as like, well, I only want this guy to list my house for $500 because I want to make the most bang out of it. It's like, well, Ryan, you might have somebody, the way you basically add value or get it out there, you might get that person 20 offers. Mm-hmm. If you went with a guy who was only $500, it doesn't do anything for him. It may only be 2 offers. So it's almost counterintuitive, because those offers are going to drive the price up and help them make more money, right?
And in our industries, it's amazing too, just with the relationships I have with other agents and working with them for years, of being able to call them personally.
Correct.
Talk to them.
Yeah.
You know?
But it's the same thing for lenders. It's like some lenders just don't do good pre-approvals.
Yeah.
And the last 3 years, where I know that's bit a lot of people in the butt, is everybody goes in with hard earnest money. So how are you going to pay these $5,000 or $10,000 earnest money checks back to people when you give them the green light? You know what I'm saying? And it's just one of those things where it's like you've got to be really good and efficient up front, especially if there's some hard earnest money, to make sure the deal can get done. You know what I'm saying?
And that's a great point. It's just like when I ask buyer's agents on our listings, are you confident with your lender? And they say yes. I'm like, are you willing to guarantee your buyer's earnest money? If not, your lender's not any good, because
correct.
If you give me a pre-approval, I'll guarantee your earnest money.
Correct.
Now you're going to lose any sleep over it.
Yeah.
And I think they need to start looking at it that way, because too many people in our industry, both clients will use friends, not professionals.
Yep.
Right? Their wives won't cheat on their extension lady or their lash technician, right?
Yeah.
But by golly, with $1 million house, they'll cheat on, you know, their professional because their buddy just got a license, or something, or her friend just got a license. And, you know, in your industry, it's the same way. And it's just baffling to me that they're willing to play with that kind of money for friendship. I mean, do you want to do a friend a favor? Do you want to net the most money possible?
Correct.
There's a reason why some of us get paid so well. And you can't say we're overpaid when it's a commission industry.
Correct.
And I work on, you know, that's one of the hard times I get in my industry is, you know, I'm the slut. I work at a lower commission rate than most people.
Yeah.
And so obviously if I can still hit the numbers I'm hitting on that, I mean.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you ever lose a deal?
Oh, yeah. I'm not doing enough deals if I'm not losing them.
Yeah.
Right. And that is the sports mentality again.
Correct.
If I'm making every basket that I shoot,
correct,
I'm not shooting enough. Because if Michael Jordan wasn't making every basket, then I know for sure I got to be missing some too, right? So, yeah, you're going to lose deals.
Yeah.
For a lot of reasons.
Yeah.
But it's really important that, again, you can be honest with yourself and be objective and go back to the client and ask, why did I lose it?
There you go. Yeah.
I just want to improve for the next deal.
Yeah.
Why did I lose the deal?
Yeah.
Be brutally honest. I'm not trying to change your mind. I'm not going to argue with you. And if you prefer not to tell me, just text me and then block me. That's fine too. I really want to know, because I don't want to lose 2 in a row from the same reason.
Right.
And usually, honestly, it comes down to just enthusiasm. In most cases, it's like the other agents just felt like they wanted it more, or just felt more excited about it.
Yeah.
And sometimes that happens. Sometimes I get going so fast that I just, you know, and I think we all do that in our personal lives, especially. You come home and just, hey, right, you know,
It's so true.
But you got to take that extra effort, you know, so.
For you, you know, kind of wrap this up, but for you, what's kind of like your de-stressing, right? Like one time I told you, like, you told me that you love Disneyland, right? And obviously I need to go to Disneyland with you. But talk to me why you love Disneyland so much. You know what I'm saying? I thought this was hilarious, right?
So most people think I'm really uptight and an asshole, and, you know, just, and part of that is because when I'm in the office, and again, sports analogies, I have my game face on.
Yeah.
And when you're doing the number of deals that we're doing, and I'm dealing with, forget the deals, when I'm dealing with the number of emotions of my clients and their spouses and the stresses that they're going through, I've got 20 different things going through my mind at any given time.
Yep.
Right? And then you add in girlfriend, kid texted, he forgot his lunch card, you know, you got all that stuff going on.
Yep.
So in order for me to fully focus, I have to have my game face on. So I don't look approachable at the office. I am, you walk in my office anytime you want, ask me whatever you want. But at the end of the day, I know I only have a certain amount of time, so I got to maximize that time, and I have to stay as focused as I possibly can at all times. So people get a kick out of Disneyland because, so growing up in LA, I've spent, I don't know how many days at Disneyland. I mean, parents would drop us off after school. We'd go hang out, dates. I mean, one of my first kisses. Disneyland brings back a lot of memories on Main Street and everything else. And so my son, and in fact, if you ask him, you know, where's the one place you'll see your dad smile all day long from 8 a.m. till midnight? And it's Disneyland. And I mean, I'm that goofball that's got the Mickey gloves on, the Mickey ears on. I got 2 churros in each hand. You know, I got my backpack, I got my running shoes on, because we're going all day. Yeah. And it's a blast. And that's my one, I shouldn't say one trip of the year. We do a tournament with him, and my sports tournaments are my trips with my son. I haven't been on an actual vacation in years, because I'd rather do not miss his sports. Yeah. Right. And he has enough of them where it'd be more vacations than you would go on with your wife. So we go to Park City for a big tournament every year for him. over Pioneer Day week. So that I take 4 days for. I'm still working from there, but I'm just not in person. And then de-stressing. Honestly, everybody's going to have a different thing to de-stress. For me, it's always been exercise. The endorphins and the sweating and just exhausting myself really relieves the stress.
Yeah.
And there are times when you'll see me working out twice a day.
Yeah.
And it's actually not healthy, actually, because I'm actually probably breaking things down a little more than I should. But then I don't have to take sleeping medication or anything else. I just exhaust myself and boom, I go to bed. In fact, like tonight, I plan on running 4 or 5 miles later tonight, 8:30, 9 o'clock. Just wear myself out, and I feel good, go to bed, and I'm back up tomorrow morning.
Yeah.
I'll hit the gym early tomorrow morning, and then I've got appointments all day tomorrow.
Yeah. No, bro, this has been a good time, dude.
So, no, I appreciate it.
Thanks for your time.
Well, thank you. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.